Ava Merlo had been warned about men like Luca Verezzi long before she ever stepped into the glass towers of Verezzi International Men, whose power didn't need to be announced, whose presence didn't need to be introduced, whose attention could ruin a woman or remake her entirely. She thought working for him would feel like orbiting a sun, too bright to look at, but instead it felt like being caught inside the gravity of something dangerous, irresistible, and absolutely off-limits. On her first day, she promised herself one rule: never fall for a man who signs her paycheck. It was easy at first. Luca barely looked at her unless she was summarizing a report or handing him a document. He wasn't rude, just controlled, so composed that she wondered if anything could crack that impossible exterior. But slowly, carefully, the cracks appeared. A moment too long when their hands touched. A question from him that felt a little too personal. A stare from across a meeting room that made her heart beat dangerously fast. Ava tried to ignore it. She tried to convince herself it was nothing. Then came the night everything changed. The office had emptied hours before. She stayed late, finishing a quarterly breakdown when the elevator opened and Luca stepped out, dark suit, loosened tie, looking less like a billionaire executive and more like a man letting his walls slip for the first time. "You're still here?" he asked. His voice was softer than usual, not its usual clipped, business-precise tone. She nodded, pretending she didn't feel the air shift between them. "I wanted to finish this tonight," she said. "You needed it by morning." He set a hand on her desk, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "You push yourself too hard." "You demand excellence," she replied, trying to sound playful instead of breathless. His eyes lowered just slightly, and for a moment he didn't look like her boss. He looked like a man fighting something inside himself. Ava. Just her name, but spoken like a confession he was terrified to make. She felt her pulse quicken. She stood because sitting felt too vulnerable, and suddenly they were inches apart in an empty floor of a silent building. She thought he would kiss her. She felt his breath. She felt the tension. She felt every forbidden thing build like a storm, waiting for a single trigger. But then he blinked hard, stepping back like he'd touched fire. "I don't date employees," he said sharply, as if forcing himself to remember it out loud. "Not ever." The words sliced through every fragile, blooming hope inside her. She managed a small nod, trying to hide the sting. "Of course, Mr. Verezzi." "Ava." His jaw tightened. His voice wavered almost imperceptibly. "This can't happen." She held her breath until he left, and when the elevator doors closed behind him, she finally let the ache settle in her chest. She told herself she'd move on. It was only attraction, only fantasy, only something she could bury if she tried hard enough. But burying it became impossible when every day afterward he looked at her like he regretted the rule he had chained himself to. Their exchanges grew shorter, tighter. He avoided her eyes in meetings. He dismissed her quickly. But he also lingered in silence when she entered a room. And sometimes she caught him staring at her with a hunger he didn't know how to hide fast enough. Weeks passed like this, an unbearable dance of restraint. Then came the biggest project of the year. Ava led the data team. The stakes were high. The company's largest global acquisition. She worked day and night until the numbers blurred. She stopped eating lunch, stopped going home before midnight. And one evening, while she leaned over her screen, rubbing her temples, she heard familiar footsteps behind her. "You're doing too much again," Luca said, voice low. She didn't turn. "It's fine, I'm fine." "You're not," he said. A moment passed, a dangerous one. She finally looked at him. His tie was gone, his sleeves rolled, his hair slightly undone from stress. He looked human. She hated how much more that made her want him. "This is just work," she whispered. "Nothing I can't handle." "You shouldn't have to handle everything alone." His tone held something she had never heard before, something almost tender. "Then let me be honest," she said softly. "It's not the work that's hard. It's pretending you don't matter." The silence that followed felt electric. His breath hitched, his composure fractured. "Ava." "It's okay," she said with a painful smile. "You don't date employees, I know." He flinched like the words hurt him. He stepped closer, but stopped himself again, his restraint warring with his desire. "I made that rule for a reason." "To protect the company?" she asked. "To protect myself," he admitted. "From crossing a line I'm not sure I could come back from." Something in her broke then. She realized she couldn't live in half moments and almost confessions. She couldn't keep pouring her heart into a job where her feelings were the biggest liability. And she couldn't spend years standing 3 feet from a man who wanted her but wouldn't allow himself to have her. The next morning, she typed her resignation with trembling fingers. When she entered his office to hand it to him, he looked up and instantly went pale. "What is this?" he asked, voice tight. "My resignation," she said. His breath stopped, his hand clenched around the paper. "Ava, no. I can't work here anymore." His eyes flicked up, filled with fear, regret, something deeper. "Is it because of me?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He stood abruptly. "Ava, please." But she turned and walked out, leaving him staring at. The door like the ground had been pulled out from under him. He had spent years controlling everything, but he had no control over losing her. And for the first time, the billionaire who never begged looked genuinely desperate. Luca didn't wait. The moment Ava stepped out of the elevator and disappeared into the morning rush, he felt something inside him snap, a panic he didn't recognize, a fear he wasn't built to handle. He had built an empire from nothing, faced ruthless competitors, survived hostile takeovers, and negotiated with men twice as dangerous as he was. But losing Ava, losing the one person who made him feel human, was the one battle he had never prepared for. 10 minutes passed before he grabbed his keys and left his office without a word. His assistant called after him, confused, but he didn't stop. He didn't care about meetings, investors, or schedules. He cared about only one thing: finding Ava before she disappeared forever. Ava was halfway down the street when she heard someone calling her name desperately, breathlessly. She froze. Her pulse spiked. She turned, and there he was, crossing the sidewalk like a man who had just realized the world could crumble if he hesitated. "Ava," he said, stopping in front of her, chest rising sharply, dark eyes filled with everything he'd been hiding. "You can't leave." She swallowed hard. "You made the rule." "I made a mistake," he said. His voice cracked, not dramatically, but just enough for her to feel it in her bones. "I thought keeping distance would protect us, protect the company, protect everything." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated, broken open. "But it's destroying me." Her breath trembled. "Luca." "No." He stepped closer. "Listen to me. I don't want to lose you, not as an employee, not as... He stopped himself, as if the next words were too vulnerable, too honest. She blinked slowly. Not as what? He exhaled shakily. Not as the woman who makes me forget every wall I've built. Her heart twisted. You're only saying this because I resigned. No, he said fiercely. I'm saying this because I should have said it the night I almost kissed you. The memory hit her like heat, the tension, the breath, the almost. Ava looked away, overwhelmed. But we can't. You said it yourself. I know what I said, he replied softly. And I know what it cost me. A moment of silence fell between them, raw, fragile, heavy, with all the things they hadn't said for months. She took a slow breath. Luca, I didn't quit to make you choose. I quit because I needed to breathe again. And you will, he whispered, stepping closer, his voice low and trembling with sincerity. But not without hearing the truth first. Her eyes met his. The truth is, he said, I want you, not as my employee, not as a secret. I want you in my life, in my world, in my arms. He paused, eyes dark and earnest. And I'm terrified, but not of loving you. I'm terrified of not trying. The wind brushed her hair. The city hummed around them. And for the first time, she felt the weight of his walls falling like glass. Luca, she whispered, but the word dissolved as he reached for her hand slowly. Giving her time to pull away, she didn't. Her fingers intertwined with his, and the billionaire who once hid behind rules and restraint closed his eyes in relief, like he had been holding his breath for months. So, she said quietly, what now? He opened his eyes, softened and unguarded. Now, he murmured, stepping closer until she felt his warmth. I finally get to take you on the date I've wanted since the day you walked into my office. A small, breathless laugh escaped her. And what about your rule? He smiled gentle, real, undone. It just broke. And then, with the city rushing around them, and the morning sun catching the edge of his jaw, Luca leaned in and kissed her slow, deep, and with all the months he had tried to hide. It wasn't a beginning. It was everything finally falling into place.